How is the interview prep going on for you?
Be confident and maybe practice that a little bit with myself. Warna I get thrown off by some questions. मेरे को ऐसा लगा I rushed through the interview थोड़ा सा. I could have slowed it down and come up with more pain points than I said.
I'm just reading those questions. I'm watching some videos.
Problem, I'm getting into the solution part instead of going step by step. And थोड़ा सा वो storytelling भी चाहिए ना. You wanted to ask me why is the transition from sales to PM, and the problem statement was शादी.com में अभी dating app बनाना है. मैंने direct से solution कर दिया अभी शादी.com में क्यों dating app बनाना है. So I should have probed the question side.
Can you guys become one interviewer and just interview me? I can just show you the steps on how to structure the thoughts. Right, that is important for all of you.
Let's do the interview.
Hi Rohan, how are you doing?
Hey Ayush, all good? How are you? How's your day
Fine.
going?
Let's start with the first question. I went through a resume. You have a cracking resume. You've been a product manager, you've been a CEO, founder, and a senior product manager. What do you want next in your product management career?
Great question. So right now I have a couple of experiences, right? So I started with a B2C company. I started working when the product was very new. It didn't have any product market fit. So we were just figuring out if, what is the scope of this product, right? So it was a fintech app. Back in the days, right now you hear about Slice and Unicards, etc., right? But back in the days, Red Carpet of that company name was. So they used to do the same thing that Slice does now, but just for students. So they found a very target niche audience. When I joined in, it was 50,000 downloads or 50,000 users at that time, right? And in a span of a year, I think we managed to scale it up to 1 million users. So that was the first assignment that I did. In that, I think I had great learnings because first I was a first product hire there, and at that time I didn't know what product management is really. The only goal that I had is that first I had to scale, we had to scale the product. Second, we also had to maintain a good retention with that. Now I can talk about these terms, retention and everything, but that time I didn't know. I just only had two goals, right? But these two goals kept me grounded and told me what needs to be done. So I have been working with sales. Going to the field and seeing how people react to our app when we pitch to it, what are the problems they face. So that was my first assignment, and I learned a lot. I built a team and then left to Builder. There I was managing a product called Builder Cloud. In Red Carpet App, it was a B2C company, right? And in Builder, it was a B2B company. Naturally, in B2C, the most focused you are on users and the value that you can provide to people. In B2B, that whole equation changed. I was working more towards revenue because we are only having a handful of customers and how we can increase revenue. So even with 250 customers, we were able to garnish a revenue of $5 million a month. So that was a whole different learning for me. After Builder, now I just feel like I'm at a stage where I want to move again to a B2C company. And I just feel like you guys are doing great in that space.
So at Notion, we believe that every person should be able to express their thoughts, and the textual expression should not be a problem. It should be very intuitive. Given that, what do you think is the basic difference or approach when you are looking for a B2B product and a B2C product, since you work with both?
Just to get the question right, so you are asking me, let's say, what changes as a PM for you when you are working for a B2B versus a B2C company? Okay, so the thing here is, in B2C company, first thing is, I was working at a very initial stage of that product, right? So I had a lot to experiment there. I can go back and call people and see how people are reacting to an update, etc. But at the scale of Notion, I just feel like first in B2C, you have to be very close contact with the customers. If you're not doing that, I think we lose the charm very easily. So there is a scope of going off board with the whole direction, as a product as well. So I think the first thing is being very user centric when it comes to B2C. If we are solving a user problem, I think revenue will be a secondary thing that will automatically come, right? If people are there, revenue comes in B2C. But in B2B, the same thing changes as the whole concept of B2B is how much upselling you can do for a existing customer. Average user value, how can you increase that? B2C, I'll more focus on the user. In B2B, even though you'll focus on the user, but your main objective would be to go towards revenue.
Let's say you join in Notion as a senior PM. What would you do in your first 90 days?
Now with the 2 assignments in my bag, I just feel like I won't do a lot of very necessary jazz, to be honest. What I have understood is the first thing is if I don't gel with the team, that is the most important thing, to understand the team members, who is working with the team and how do they operate, right? I cannot be going out and saying that this is all wrong and we should be changing that. The first thing that I have realized, I mean, I have made this mistake in my previous companies as well. So the first time you go, you see a lot of wrong things. Why is this happening like this? Why is that? So I just feel like I'll have to control that instinct. I have that, I can control that instinct now. So my first observation is to figure out how team members work, what is their way of functioning, and then I can mold in that kind of way. That's the first thing. The second thing would be mostly for Notion itself. Identify who the customer are really well. I know you guys would have documented it, but I just want to understand who is the customers, right? Who are the target users? And then what is our company's vision and philosophy? Before even touching a single piece of code, I just want to understand what is that I'm going to align with. Every feature or everything that I'm going to figure out should be aligned with the company's vision. So that is the second thing. And the third thing would be something impactful.
Interesting. One last question about your previous work, then we'll jump to the problem segment. What was your biggest failure since you've been building fairly, scaled up products? What do you think one idea that was one of the biggest failures?
So in the initial days, it was around 2018 or 2017. I just don't recall the year, but it was fairly in May or June. At that time, the whole discussion was around, should Aadhaar be used for private companies or not, right? And then Supreme Court's decision came in that they're banning use of Aadhaar, e-Aadhaar verification for private companies. It can only be used for government. I mean, it was very impactful, very hardly impactful to our company at that stage. That was the most significant thing that happened to us at that time. Why, you ask? Just imagine when we were doing e-verifications of user, right? KYC verification. It costed us 2 rupees per user. But after this decision, Supreme Court's verdict, that cost would go up to 200 or 250 rupees. Why? Because now you have to go to his address, collect all the documents, and come back and submit to your office or something, so that you have a centralized KYC. Having a person go to that place, having that photocopy collected from the person, then coming back, it just requires so much amount of... so just imagine the whole equation changed. So that was the worst thing that happened in my career, because I was shocked. I was numb. At that time, I didn't know what to do. But then I realized, seeing at the founders, because they were they also received this news and they were hampered by it more. But they were in that mindset that we have to figure out an alternative. We cannot go to that route. And they were chill about it. So I realized, okay, I don't have to live in this whole thing for a long time. What I did is we started figuring out what would be a potential solution to this, how we can improve it, right? So I'll just tell you a story about it. I was going to my parents' place at that time, and I was doing a train journey at that time. And in that train journey, one thought struck me that every Aadhaar has a QR code. What is that used for? I scanned my Aadhaar card, and it gave me information about my name, my everything that is written on your Aadhaar. And then that was a moment that was like, oh shit. Why do we need KYC to get these information and verify it, right? What if we can add this feature and say that you have to scan your Aadhaar, and we are not communicating with any database, so there is no data loss. So the Supreme Court's verdict is not valid as well. So what we did next is we performed KYC via scan QR code, and that was the next step. So yeah, that was the biggest failure, I would say, at that time, because we were not able to find out a solution for a week, and we were dumb. We were feeling like that we are done with as a company. But then quickly we gathered up and we figured out this is a good solution to go ahead with.
Interesting. Coming to the question, you might have used Notion for all your documents, right? So we want to expand the dimension which people use to communicate and write on Notion, and introduce maybe a hybrid audio video product which can help people communicate more clearly in the documents. This is not specific to teams or individuals, but a problem in general, because we see that people are not finishing up Notion documents and they leave them in between.
All right. So just to get the question clearly again, the problem you are stating is people are not completing reading the Notion document. Is that correct?
Yeah, that problem has been stated by the team, and the team now wants to design audio-video product for people to express more clearly.
I'm writing about a feature, just for an example, and let's say that the designer or developer is not clear about it, so he'll ask me for a video call, and then I'll explain it. Is that the correct?
Absolutely.
So there are two schools of thought. I mean, two things that you said, that people don't use comment because it gets crowded and it's hard to find.
It's a little more friction to write stuff, so people think that getting on a video call is easier. This is what we observed for the user testing.
People are not clear and they don't use comments because it adds friction and somewhat. I mean, any other insight that you can give me? Why do people not use comments?
First of all, people prefer directly talking to the people, and getting a reply to the comment doesn't sound very, it's little out of the document. That's what we see, and it breaks the flow of the document. I mean, our routers use it, but when we go to teams or people discussing features, that doesn't.
With all the information that I have, I'll just try to repeat what I know.
Sure.
The problem is people are not completing Notion document, reading the Notion document. One potential solution that you already have come up with is that adding an audio video feature, doing something about it, right? And before jumping into the solution, I just wanted to be more clear about the problem. And so why people are not completing is because they're not clear about what is, about some aspect, and then just they leave and then they talk to their coworkers or something, and then they come back. So in that case, I asked you, why do they not prefer using comments, correct?
Yeah.
And there were two reasons: that it adds a bit of friction, and it is hard to find the comments, etc. And it breaks the flow of document as well. Now I would just want to go a bit more about Notion, right? As soon as we add a video call, that becomes a sync. A sync discussion becomes sync. So a sync is basically where I'm taking my sweet time to answer whenever I have time, right? And sync is where I have to be present, you have to be present, and then we talk. So I just want to figure out Notion as a company. What does it stands for? Is it for a sync discussion? Is it for sync discussion, or you guys are okay with both?
We want to bridge the gap between async and sync, but primarily we want people to use it for async discussions. Our founders also think that if the async discussions can be more clear, the number of times you need to sync to make that async discussion work should be as less as possible.
Let's reiterate to the problem again. I just wanted to spend a bit more time there. So the whole problem is people are not completing Notion document because they are stuck at some point and they want someone's help to reach there.
Yeah,
and for that,
might be not exactly want someone help, or they might want to communicate in a medium more than text.
This was one problem that Notion identified a bit earlier as well, right? That there would be some doubts, some ideas that will be there while people are reading. And then they introduced comments at that time, right? Where you can add a specific comment and say, what is this? Explain a bit more about this. And now you are seeing that that comment feature is not getting used a lot because it's very hard to find each comment and there is no structure of comments, right? I just feel like comments is something that is solving this problem, but it is not very efficient right now.
Comments acts as a two-way communication channel, but in order to articulate my thoughts better, people have said that we might not prefer to use comments because it's to get replies from people. But if I am not clear about something, or if I want to communicate something in a more better way, I might not go to the comment section in the first place. Let's say I might want to paste a video link in the...
I mean, people want a lot of different things, but I just want to figure out if that demand is just from the users as well, because I know, I mean, you can add a lot of features and audio, video, any medium that you want. What are we trying to accomplish here? The goal, I'll just try to reiterate. What is the goal? Is the goal that there should not be any, and we want to minimize the back and forth after a document is created, or we want to minimize, so there is one thing where, let's say I write a document and there is no, or there is very less back and forth of communication between me and my team.
The end goal should be to minimize the back and forth, but specific to this problem, as I said earlier, that we want to give people more mediums to express themselves so that they don't have to continuously, increase the back and forth. If I would state an example, before text documents existed, for every small interaction, we either used to message or email, and then that was eradicated by the coming of text documents.
Both of us concluded that end goal is that we can reduce the back and forth between the team members, and then after the user research, the team has come up with the conclusion that if we present the whole document, or if we add the ability to add video and audio, that helps the cause.
So it's not that we need to add audio and video. We want to give people another medium to express themselves other than.
We are reducing the back and forth. With that, we figured out that if we introduce one more medium to communicate, that helps the cause. I want to understand the problem again a bit more. Do you want me to go and tell you how this will work, or what is the objective behind it?
Okay, the objective is to streamline and define and design a product that would, use audio and video as a medium. Right now, there's nothing related to audio video as a means of expression inside Notion. The only way a person can express his thoughts is through text. So we want more mediums of expression.
All right. So now I want to come to how I think and envision this solution a bit. I'll just take a typical example of how work happens in a normal tech. Right, that is the main target users of Notion as well. So imagine if we are working in a tech company, the main work that we do on Notion is to document our whole feature, our whole vision, or something about the company, right? Product or the company. Now, with audio and video, we want to try to accomplish the same thing, but we just want to make that friction go away, right? Because writing requires a lot of thinking and everything, right? And you can talk while you can talk. I see two problems here. First is that people are not clear with the documents, or people are not clear with the content of the document, and video or audio can act as a much more easier way to communicate that, because visuals are much more easier to comprehend and understand. That's the first problem that I've identified. And the second problem is that if they have any specific doubt in the document, comments are not very handy for the people. Let's start with the first one. When people are not clear with the content of the document, and let's say as a creator, right, I'll try to divide the persona into two: a writer and a reader. The writer is someone who wants to convey his thought, idea, or something to a group of people or group of readers. The writer would want essentially that if he puts in one effort, right, one-time effort, it should not result in a lot of back and forth. He should be able to convey his thought as clear and crisp and everything, right? For that, he's currently using text. But what if he uses a video to showcase how that thing will look like, or how that idea is working like? Let's say audio. Let's say I'm a content marketing. How that thing is going to work, like what is the depth of the tone or something like that. So audio comes in handy in that case. So I just feel like for writers, video and audio can be a good medium to express this thought. And the whole goal here is that it will reduce the back and forth and help them communicate their ideas much more clearly. And so that's the first thing. How does I envision this inside Notion is by not adding anything new. I just feel like we can add where you can record a video, you can record your screen, and then just paste it on Notion, and then it will just preview your video. You have three options. You can either write, you can create a video for the same, or you can. So for audio, you can self-record, or you can just say text to speech. I think text to speech is a very easy thing to do. For audio, self-record and say text to speech. For video, I just feel like there could be two things. First thing is video recording, and second thing is screen recording. That covers the most aspect of what people want to communicate. I just feel like this could be in-app support that we can give at Notion. Will be given an option. Do you want to screen record? Do you want to do screen plus video? And do you want to do only video? And then if you record it, you have the ability to save or discard it. Okay. And then you can write, or you can just skip it.
Do you want this to happen in comments as well, or inside the document?
I was coming to that. So the second problem that we identify is that comments are not very handy for people right now in the current form. So I just feel like, we should extend this in comments as well, because it's much more easier for me to record my audio and say, this is, hi, how are you? This is not how I feel like it. Can you just show me a wireframe of this? And then people can respond to that wireframe, or they can just type. So this is how I envision the whole solution.
Okay. Okay. Just to add a few more questions to this, do you want Notion to devise the video recording tech inside Notion, or do you want people to record it separately using something and then paste it to Notion?
I mean, that is already happening, no? Let's take an example of Loom, where you can record your whole screen and you can just paste a link and it embeds your video inside Notion. So I'm assuming that you guys have figured out that this is not how you want to make that communication happen. So you want to build an input like for that.
So the
That's what it
essential
is.
thing would be integrating or deeply integrating Loom into Notion.
Correct.
Okay, understood. Fair. Now, let's say you get a heads up on this feature. What would be your first steps for the launching to the first target group of say 250 users? What would you do and observe?
Post-launch.
Yeah.
Let's say the user research team would have identified, right, who these kind of people are. So let's say we can divide the people into 3 groups, right? So first can be already have a lot of earlier adopters as well, right? So they would be the one key people who we can go in. Then we can divide someone who is moderately using it and someone who avidly uses Notion, right? So let's say these 3 buckets, we can release it to 1% of these 3 people and see how they react. And then,
but how would you define that your feature actually helped them or not? How would you prove that?
great question. So let's go back to the goal that we were trying to solve. And that goal was that we want to reduce the back and forth between them. How do we calculate that? Is back and forth basically means converting a async discussion to async, right? Basically, if you go out and do a Google Meet or do a Zoom meeting after reading the document, that we want to reduce that happening. And currently we cannot track that because that's how happening outside of Notion. What is the biggest indicator of seeing how many interactions have, how much back and forth has increased inside Notion? I just feel like it's through comments first. If we can reduce the comments, number of comments, I just feel like the back and forth would reduce. That is an indicator of the back and forth that reduce. So the first metric that I would track is average comment per user per document, and this should decrease. Second, how we manage to look at back and forth is also the main problem that we were looking at is also people are not completing the Notion document. So we'll also have to track that because that was the main problem that we were trying to solve. So these are the 2 key goals or problems that we were trying to solve, right? This is the two key metrics that I will say. And then you have the how much feature is getting used. I think that is pretty evident. Number of people using this video and audio thing. What else can be there to say this feature is a success? People are not completing Notion document and we have to reduce the back and forth.
Thank you for the solution, and it was a very good discussion. But just to end the interview, before we end the interview, a small guesstimate, and it's a time guesstimate. So what is the average number of documents that person on Notion would create? And this is excluding teams.
Average document created per person?
Yeah, excluding teams.
Excluding?
Teams.
So let's say what kind of people are there. So there is a personal plan, normal person uses, then there are teams and business plan. So we are excluding teams and business plan.
Absolutely.
Okay, the last time I checked Notion, there was 10 million downloads on the app and 10 million users. So I'll just take that as a reference. So I'll assume there are 10 million users of Notion right now. And out of that, 50% are paid users and 50% are personal or personal pro users. That's an assumption. On what basis I'm taking is basically the normal ratio in any B2B product or a paid product. A lot of people are on free trials, so a 50% is that assumption that I'm making, that 50% people will be using it for free. So in free, it can be team trials, business, etc., etc. So if I reduce the trials and everything, I just think that this would be a 40 to 45% of people out of 10 million who are using this, right? So the estimate is 4.5 to 5 million people who are using free or who are using the personal plan. Just to reiterate, this is what we are looking at, right? The personal plan people, how many documents they're creating per user.
Absolutely.
So let's assume that personal plan, how many people would come in? How many types of people would come in, right? So one people would be who have already used Notion somewhere and they have figured out that they can use it for their own personal thing as well. So I just feel like 20% of people could be there, right? They have already experienced Notion and they are coming back. 40 to 50% people would be who are using Notion in their college because it's a good note taking app and it's pretty popular in college going students as well, right? And for journaling as well. Third would be people who explored it and then they said this is too much work and drop off. Right. So that's it. This would be 30 to 40% of people. If we look at people who came from a business, I mean, who experienced Notion from the company and then they used it for their personal thing. So their driver and their motivation is huge, right? They figured out that Notion is a great note-taking tool. So the probability that they are using it super high. So we are seeing average document per person created in their whole lifetime, right? If these people are coming up here, I just feel like that the average document they would create should be around 20 to 25 in their lifetime. 20 is very huge. I'll just recorrect that. I'll say 10 documents.
So any metric, or was it an intuition to come to 10?
So I'm just thinking, let's say I'm in a company, right? Right. And then I move to Notion. What are the things that I'll write? I'll have a resume maybe here. I'll do a habit tracker or something like that. These are the 10 documents that I'll try to create. Students, that 40 to 50%, 50%. I think these will be only 2 documents. They are okay with having 1 page and writing everything down here. That's an assumption that I'm making, but yeah. And people who have explored it, I don't think they would have created a document as well. So we'll just stick with 20% people who are using 10 documents. If we take 4.5 mil, 20% of that basically means 900K people using 10 docs. And then you have 50% of this is equals to 2.25 mil using 1 document, creating 1 document. So it's basically 2.5 million documents plus 20% of 10. So my estimate is 3.5 million documents that have been created by free trial. I mean, the personal plans in Notion. And now I feel like this is huge. This is very over the mark. This shall be over the mark. But yeah, that's my assumption.
Okay, so can you just reiterate your final answer?
I assume there are 10 million people using Notion. Out of that, 50% people are using personal plan that is free. So I'm taking 4.5 million people. Out of that 50%, a lot of them would have been on trial of teams and business as well. So I'm excluding that. So the number comes out to be 4.5 million. In personal plan, I divided segment into 3. So one is people who are 20% people who are using as a super users who have already experienced Notion and they've created their own, and they would averagely use 10 documents per person. I just feel like this could be a bit less. I would not make the change now, but then 40 to 50% people who are in college, they would have gotten some credits or something, and then they came to this, and they would be creating 1 document, 2 document. I just feel like because they're okay writing everything down in just a single. And then people who explored Notion, they didn't find the fate and they leave. So they have not created any page, any documents, right? If we look at it, 20% of 4.5 million equals to 900,000, and 900,000 creating 10 documents is then 50% people in college creating 1 document is 50 million. 50% of 4.5 million is 2.25 million, and 1 document is 2.5 million. Yeah, and others are not creating anything. So my estimate now is 11.25 million.
So that rounds out to how many documents per user on average?
We considered 4.5 million free users. So that would be around 2 documents
per average. Okay. Thank you, Rohan, for your time. It was great interacting.
Thank you so much, Ayush. I hope you have a good day. Yeah. Thanks.
You were like, fuck it, I'll just reframe the entire question. मैं तेरे को पूछूं कि तू क्या पूछना चाह रहा है. That complete pivot gives sort of puts you in. वो बहुत सही था. You were stating your biases on your opinions, basically कि क्या school of thought है, कि you have where your opinions are coming from. Third would be stating your mistakes, your learnings, and then your changed behavior. क्योंकि PMs का वो hub वाला scene रहता है, so that's a great way to communicate. On the same lines you mentioned कि starting में, I really did not expect that question, by the great question.
I felt like this was not like interview, and it was like more of brainstorming session. You both sitting in the meeting room and discussing about, you're already in the company and you were discussing the deep dive questions. So I think that part I'm lacking on it.
The thing that all of you are lacking is just take interviews as conversations, not interviews. That's it.
you're repeating problem and assumption again and again. So that was a good point because many time when we were discussing, सामने वाला कुछ भी क्वेश्चन पूछ देता है, when we were like flow में जब आगे चले जाते हैं, फिर मैं वापस जाके देखता हूँ तो उसने ये कंस्टेंट हमको दिया होता है जो वो अब ब्रेक कर रहा है, तो वो चीज हट जाएगी if we are repeating problem and assumption.
सैलरी हर महीने की लेनी है तो एक महीना थम के ले लो, फिर उसके बाद एक्स्ट्रा ले लो.